Hi, everybody. Is this on? Okay, good. So, thankfully, my voice recovered. Otherwise, talking about talking would have been very difficult. One of the things that, as you've already seen, helps drive the Kubernetes community is the communication that we do every day. How we talk to each other, how we send emails, how we communicate on issues, how we do all things that involve conveying information from one person to another. I think one of the things that makes Kubernetes so successful, which frankly, if you ask 10 people in a room what makes Kubernetes successful, you'll probably get 12 different answers. But in my mind, one of the things that makes Kubernetes so successful is the way that it is built, not just as a project on GitHub, not just as a collection of bits stored in a repo, but that Kubernetes is explicitly defined as a community. Kubernetes is explicitly defined as a group. We're a family. We all work together, and we all have to talk, and we all have to be able to share our ideas, and we all have to be able to share information. So, the fun slide. Everybody loves capybaras. You might not have realized that you did, but you do now. The capybara has become not really an unofficial mascot, but the way capybaras work when they are put in various environments is they will naturally nurture each other. They will take care of themselves, and they will take care of other animals. When orphaned animals are put together in a zoo, they're often given to a capybara so that they can take care of them. They have a natural instinct to be a parent, to be a shepherd, to be a mentor for other animals. We like this analogy because this is how we see a lot of the activity in the Kubernetes community. When you're dealing with the people in the Kubernetes community, when you're working together, when you're trying to solve a problem, our abilities to shepherd each other and our abilities to take care of each other are part of what drives this community. We have an explicit code of conduct on how we conduct business, how we conduct ourselves, that helps define more than just be nice to each other. We have to be taking care of each other, and we have to be communicating in order for this project to be as successful as it is. It's one of the very strongest driving forces. So, why is everybody so nice? We've got a code of conduct that's explicitly defined. And part of that code of conduct, as I said, is more than just don't be a jerk. It's that you have to take care of each other. You have to be able to communicate. I'm probably going to say the word communicate like 84,000 more times over the next 15 minutes. However, that doesn't mean that communication goes completely unfettered. There are some rules, or really more of traditions, on how we communicate. And we like to get this out of the way first before we say, okay, and now just open your mouth, speak your mind. Some of the few traditions that we have are when you're looking for technical assistance, when you're having technical questions that you need to get answered, a lot of open source communities tend to go to GitHub first. Say, if you have a question, just open an issue. That's not how we want to handle things. We have other places for that. We have Slack. There's 65,000 people on the Kubernetes Slack. I'm pretty sure you can find an answer to a question that you have. There's the Discuss forums. There's Stack Overflow. There's all sorts of places where if you have a question of the type, I'm trying to do X with my cluster and it's not behaving properly, or how should I expect something to work, or anything of that variety, anything that's not related to a direct working on Kubernetes itself issue. All those questions, we've got several places to go to them. Start in Slack, it's a great place. Is everybody on Slack? Is anybody not on Slack? Okay, we'll get to that. Awesome. We want to fix that. GitHub. Now that we've established, yay! Now that we've established that technical questions are not specific to GitHub, that we want to have those questions exist somewhere else, we want to talk a little bit about what does the conversation look like on GitHub. And primarily, all of the conversation on GitHub should be around the issues that you're working on. Now, of course, there's lots of peripheral discussions that happen. There's general conversation. That's fine. But all of the conversation that happens on GitHub should ideally be focused on what is the issue at hand, what are we trying to solve, and what is the problem. Pretty straightforward. Keep it on topic. It's really all it boils down to. Last but not least, how many people here are from another continent? There you go. People who are working on Kubernetes are from all over the world. And the odds of someone being in your time zone when you want to work on something is pretty low. So there has to be a semblance of patience when you're dealing with conversations, even if they're just on Slack. You may ask a question, and I've seen people come back 5 minutes later saying, hey, can I get an answer on that? Well, you probably can, but that person might be asleep right now. So realize that Kubernetes is a global community. We have people all over the world doing all sorts of different tasks. Maybe they're paying attention to Slack today, maybe they're not. Maybe they have their GitHub notifications turned down because they're on vacation. Maybe you need a set of 3 different people to compile the answer that you need. So be patient when you're going in there, when you're asking questions, when you're looking for information, because with this many people, with this many contributors, it's bound to have some time constraints. Makes sense, right? It's pretty straightforward. Once you've got through all that, though, then it's a party. Then you get to places like this, where you can start having free-form conversations, where you can get to who is in the room, who can I talk to, and just start sharing all that information. The amount of brain power in this room, in that room, all around the conference, the amount of people and the amount of experience that can help you build whatever it is that you're trying to build out of your Kubernetes contribution life. It's really a sight to behold. And when you get out there and just start talking to people, you will learn far more than you will in any other mode. I can firmly vouch for when you are around the conference, spend time in the hallway track. I think I have a slide about that later. So, what do we have for online communications? We've already mentioned a couple of these, but let's go down the list. Slack is the first and foremost one. Pretty much everybody is on Slack. Not everybody's paying attention to it all the time, but pretty much everybody is on Slack. Discuss.kubernetes.io is a forum-based or forum-styled area so that you can ask questions about anything. It doesn't have to be technical. Could be, hey, who's in my city that also wants to talk about Kubernetes and get coffee? I mean, you can do that. And there's several subforums in various languages, so don't feel that you have to be constrained to just English. The mailing lists. Most of the formal communication ends up going out on the Kubernetes mailing lists. They're managed through Google's groups. You will find them, the first one you should always join is Kubernetes-dev, which we always abbreviate as KDev, because at some point we got sick of saying that many letters. But there are mailing lists for every group, for every SIG, for every working group, and for other just random things that happen to be out and about. So take advantage of them, use that as a method of communication. The GitHub's PRs and issues, we already talked about that. Try and stay on topic, but definitely pay attention to anything that you think is interesting, because somewhere down in the comments, you may find a bit of information that you didn't realize you were looking for. There's a fair bit of serendipity that happens there. So spend some time reading the comments. And when it comes to online communication, since we can't all be face-to-face, since we're on pretty much every continent, I don't know if there's any contributors in Antarctica, but yeah, maybe. We do our meetings on Zoom. Our meetings on Zoom are a lot of fun, and I say that strangely. It is remarkable how much you can get closer in how you work with someone when you see their face. There's really no substitute for it. And since face-to-face meetings like this only happen a couple times a year, if you're working on a team, if you're working on a PR, if you're working on a SIG, if you're working on whatever, spend time in the Zoom meetings, learn who you're talking to. They're going to be your friends, they're going to be your family. That's what it comes down to. So, I think I already ranted through most of this. When in doubt, ask on Slack. The Slack is found at slack.cates.io, and everyone, I believe, by default starts in the channels Kubernetes users and Kubernetes novice. So you will see some high traffic in those channels. It's a great place to ask questions, but again, your answer may come 14 hours later. SIG Contribex is another great channel. Those of us who manage the contributor experience have a channel specifically designed to talk amongst ourselves, but also to help people who want to know where to go next. The whole point of contributor experience is to help you as contributors. So, come ask us. If you say, I want to know who I should talk to work on X, Y, and Z, we will tell you who to go talk to. It's pretty much our job. Discuss, as I mentioned, is a forum-based website. Discuss.kubernetes.io has various regional discussions in a couple of different languages, and you will find topics all over the board on pretty much everything. Go meet some people and have some chats. The mailing list. Every SIG and every working group gets a mailing list. Some of them do get used more than others. Some of them are very high volume, and some of them are once a month. So don't necessarily expect that you're going to get a lot of volume out of them because it's based on what people are putting into them. However, the important point there is that you should be paying attention to whatever communication is coming out of the areas that are of interest to you. And you've already gone around the tables and shared a little bit about, this is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in storage, I'm interested in IoT, I'm interested in whatever. So pay attention to where the communication is coming from, and you will get the best information. You need to join Kubernetes Dev. I don't know that you necessarily need to if you are just looking for information, but you do need to in order to be a member of the Kubernetes org. And we're going to talk more about that later today. But being part of the Kubernetes Dev mailing list is the central place for all contributors. So while you may say, I don't know if I really need that, go sign up for it. It will be important to you being part of the Kubernetes community. GitHub, I think, what did we have, like 2 hands of people that weren't used to GitHub? So if you're not already, you will be soon. Get ready for a thorough grounding. But for the rest of you, you should know how this works. You know where your issues are, you know where the PRs are, you'll find them in the Kubernetes repo. Zoom meetings, as I said, our Zoom meetings are a lot of fun. We tend to have a very informal take on how we handle I don't even know how I want to phrase that. we tend to have an informal take on how we want to handle the way we interact with each other, though we do make sure that we are always within the code of conduct, if that makes sense. Long story short, we're all friendly. And there's Gwyn. Zoom meetings are scheduled on the Kubernetes calendar. There are Zoom meetings for the SIGs. There's a weekly community meeting that I suggest everyone should attend at least once. It's a grand old time. And there are various other meetings that take place depending on what you're working on. Don't be afraid to ask about changing meeting times. As we've already mentioned, this is a global community, and you will get a lot of people all over the world. So you may have a SIG that has 3 meetings a month in Pacific time and 1 in Bangalore time because it needs to facilitate more people. So don't be surprised if meeting times move around. Pay attention to the calendars. Other forms of communication that we have Meter contributors sessions. Those happen once a month where you can come in and meet people who have been contributing to the project for a while, and you can just ask them whatever. You could ask them about a particular contribution. You could ask them about what their journey was like. Again, that's a fairly informal session, and it's done on YouTube. We also have office hours, which is similar, but that is specifically for asking questions more along the lines of how to use Kubernetes or how to accomplish things, as opposed to asking about the Kubernetes contributor lifestyle. KubeCon, you're at one. Good job. You've already can check that one off. Well done. Face-to-face SIG meetings, we're going to have some this week. There'll be some today. And we're going to do the meet and greet with the SIGs later on today at around 3:30, I think that is. And last but not least, my personal favorite, Meetups. I say that because I run one. Meetups are a great way to meet other folks in the community who may or may not be contributors. You'll go out and you'll meet people who are using the project, who are using the product, maybe in their daily life. Maybe they didn't know anything about the community. Maybe they didn't realize that there's thousands of contributors. But going out and meeting those people and being able to talk to them is a great way to help build the environment and help build the community. There are a lot of them. There's, last I checked, 167 Kubernetes meetups worldwide. So you'll find quite a bit of them. If you don't have one, start one. Go ahead. I did it. I had 3 people at my first meetup. That didn't really change for the second, third, or fourth. But eventually, we got some people to show up. If you want to start a meetup and don't have any resources, reach out to any of the CNCF ambassadors. You'll find us around. We have ambassador tags on us, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. So, next exercise, everybody gets to go do something. Go join Discuss, go join Slack, subscribe to the Kubernetes dev mailing list, and sign up for the calendar if it's still there, if it hasn't moved. The links for all of those will be right here. Go sign up. I look forward to seeing all of you in the ContribX channel. Thanks for listening to me talk about talking.